All right, we finally have it. Here we have HasLab Victory Saber in hand. Now, there is a lot of stuff to kind of look at in this set, so I am going to split this up into two separate videos. In today's video, I'm mostly going to be looking at Star Saber, and I'll also show off the combined vehicle mode in this video. And then for the next video, I'll look at Victory Leo and then show off the full-on kind of Victory Saber robot mode. But yeah, it's going to be a long video, two long videos, honestly. So I figured it'd be easier to just split it up like that. Even the box in this set is kind of, worth talking about. And I am going to actually cut to that right now just to kind of show off some of the stuff with that. As you can see, the actual artwork here is very nice. It's picked out with this sort of nice, kind of similar to like the Shattered Glass comic book covers with that slightly more like reflective thing going on. And yeah, looks pretty good. You can look at the back here. It just has some product images. And usually I don't actually bother to show off the packaging. But this one actually has some kind of interesting things going on where if you actually open it up, you slide off this cover. It's got, the tray in here and it has this extra sort of poster that it comes with. It's something you can just put up on your wall, just kind of like a, liner to the packaging. And this stuff is all, fairly typical, just bubbles and stuff like that. But what's really interesting is the actual flap here itself is, they made it reversible. So you can see it's got these little tabs here that it kind of slots in with. And if you undo those, what you can actually do, I'm trying to be careful to make sure I'm not like ripping it here, but you can open it up. On the inside, it has an alternate, basically, packaging scheme that makes it look more of like Japanese packaging. And what you're supposed to be able to do is basically fold this around to the other side and re-tab this back together and have it be like a different option for the flap on the outside. So you can actually take this and put it back on the box. Now, this is a really cool idea in concept. In practice, I don't know that it works super well, just because like the way that they made this packaging, it's clearly intended for the other side to be the actual default one. So when you fold it around this way, it does tend to rip the paper here along the edge, just giving it, a like slightly more torn look where you're like being able to see the actual cardboard underneath the image. And for whatever reason, when you actually, put this back on the packaging, just the way that it's shaped, it always kind of like bows out like this just because of the way that it folds. Like it's much more clearly fitted to be the other way around. So it's a cool idea. And I do like the images on both sides if you just wanted to unfold it and hang it on your wall. But as it is, I sort of feel like it just works better with the sort of like American side of it, like the one that it's actually originally packaged in, but a cool idea nonetheless. But yeah, I'd say that's it for the packaging. Just thought that would be cool to point out, but let's get back to the figures themselves. Okay, so real quick, I'm just going to kind of run through everything that the set comes with. Obviously, we've got Star Saber himself, which comes with the little Saber Jet, who is his own transforming figure, and then the tiny little Brain of Courage guy here, and then the V-Star that kind of combines with him. We've got his shield, which also has this little handle piece that you attach to it. We've got the V-Lock cannon here, which kind of goes with Victory Leo. This smaller gun, which is really meant for Saber, but I don't know if it really has a great place in the set overall, honestly. Like it's kind of just sort of feels like an afterthought, which is a little bit strange since this isn't even one of the unlocked tiers. This was going to come with it regardless. We have the actual sword here, which combines with the front end of the jet to become the full-on sword. We've got the two little MicroMasters, which were part of the last tier here. So we've got Holly and Fire here, which are just repaints of Red Hot and Stakeout that we've gotten previously in Siege, I want to say. Obviously, it comes with Victory Leo here. Comes with these blast effects, which are just the same blast effects that we've seen kind of a billion times by now that originally came with Siege Jetfire with the 3 parts here, and it comes with 2 of those. And then it comes with this 3-part stand here with the really nice sort of big Victory logo right there, and then the actual arm of it, and then this little piece that helps it attach in jet mode. So yeah, we're just going to take most of this off right now and just focus on Star Saber himself, just to, you know, make this video a little bit less cluttered. All right, let's get all this stuff. We'll leave some of his accessories on. Just take a look at this stuff right here, and yeah, the little small saber jet is pretty nice here. With the, you can take the little brain of courage guy, who is quite tiny. They've got a decent amount of detail on him. They didn't get any paint on his face, unfortunately, but it's such a small piece that doesn't bug me too much. But it does have at least a little bit of like detail on his chest there with the little gold bits, which is nice. And this guy is really small. Like I was originally thinking, I mean, I know that they showed off like scale images of him, and so I knew he was going to be smaller than like, you know, the Titan Masters from Titan's Return, but I didn't realize he'd be like half the size of the Titan Masters, because even these guys are pretty tiny. So this is a a really tiny little figure. Definitely don't lose him because he is important to the set. But yeah, that's what they look like together. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of articulation, as you might expect. His arms are, I think, technically on ball joints, but they really only get a swivels range, but they can rotate around like that. And then his hips here can kind of bend forward at the hips. It's just one combined piece. The first time I did that felt a little bit tight, so I was kind of worried because it's like such small pieces on the pin that I was worried that it would crack over time. But after the first time I did it, it loosened up just fine, so it doesn't feel bad anymore. So yeah, you can get him in a little sitting position there, and then you can actually take the Saber jet and open up the cockpit, and you can actually sit the brain of courage guy inside there. He doesn't like tab in or anything, so he does kind of just like float around in there. But once you close up the actual cockpit, it does kind of hold him in place, so he doesn't like rattle around or anything like that, thankfully. But yeah, no, I think that the jet works pretty well overall. It's simple, but it's pretty accurate to the original toy and the original, like, you know, animation model and stuff like that. Because his little thrusters here are tied to his feet in robot mode and have a little bit of ankle pivot, you can actually just minorly kind of rotate the thrusters, so you can actually like steer the jet a little bit, which is kind of cool. But yeah, no, that works pretty well. And then we've got the V-Star here, which, you know, he did use several times in the show just as its own thing. So you could like stand on top of it and ride it. So at least it has something to do when, you know, it's not in the full combined mode. But yeah, I think that works pretty well. Again, like a lot of the figures, or a lot of the things in this set, they're generally pretty similar to the original G1 toy, just, you know, with slightly different mechanisms, and then also, you know, slightly better proportions, and then slightly better articulation. Well, much better articulation. But so, you know, it's one of those toys that is like, the original one was fairly close to like how it looked in the animation model, so there doesn't really need to be like a whole lot of reinventing of the wheel to actually make this work in a modern way, which is nice. But yeah, no, I think this looks pretty good. Now his gun here, it doesn't really have a great place to store in really any mode, to be honest. Like, it's meant to go with the smaller Saber jet, and he does have like a hole in the cockpit there, so you could do that, but I don't know, I don't think that looks particularly good. And then the combined mode, they just want you to kind of like plug it on to one of the sides here, which I'm not overly fond of, at least for the kind of like smaller, you know, combined vehicle mode, because I don't know, it's just, it messes with the symmetry a little bit, and I think it just kind of looks ugly on there. So this is kind of the one piece in the set that I generally just leave off to the side and put in a box. I don't think he really needs it. He's got enough other stuff going on that I don't think he needs the little gun, but you know, whatever. And then the shield, obviously you can just take the handle here, and it just pegs on like that. And whichever way you have this rotated, you can take this hole right here, and then this peg on the V-Star, and just peg it in like that for storage. So it does, you know, it does visually show up on top, but I kind of like that better, honestly. It kind of fills out the back end of the V-Star a little bit more. Now the sword, it does have storage in this mode, but you kind of have to access it sort of like part way through transformation. So I'll kind of show that off while I'm, you know, transferring him to the next mode, because there's like a a slot in here that it stores in one of the legs, and then that slot kind of gets closed up as part of the transformation when you plug the arm in. So it does store inside there completely unobtrusively, but I wanted to show it off at the beginning of the video here, just as the full sort of like parts catalog of this figure. So usually by the time he's in this mode, this would be kind of unaccessible. So that's just how that works. But yeah, you can also you can take the V-lock cannon here, and it has this peg to fold down. So this stores on the V-Star as well. And they actually show that off in the instructions. Show this off as storing in here in the regular Star Saber mode. But I really think that the V-lock cannon, while they're separated, is more of a Victory Leo thing. So I tend to just keep that with him. But yeah, that is an option. Obviously, you can take the blast effects and you could plug them into the back here. He's got 4 thrusters, but there's only 2 blast effects. So whatever. Because if you had more of these, they'd be in different colors, but you could probably get 4 of them in there like that. But yeah, it really is, the blast effects is just more blast effects to put in my blast effects box. I've got a billion of these and a billion of these specific ones too, so it's whatever. But it's cool that it comes with it regardless. Now, to do the combined Star Saber jet mode here, basically what you want to do with the little Saber jet is just take these tail fins here and then fold these all up so they're facing downward, and then take the main wings and fold them up so they're facing up like that. And then I want to take the V-Star here, open up these little flaps just like that. I'm gonna need to adjust here a little bit just so you can actually see what's going on. And then these 2 little slots right here on the back of Saber will clip into these little clips right here. And this is the one connection that I feel is a little bit tighter than I'd like it to be. It's just a little bit harder to actually get in there and take out than I'd like it to be compared to a lot of the other connections. You kind of have to do them sort of one at a time, and it's kind of a pain, honestly. It's wedged in there somehow just by something else right now. I think it's just on one of those clips, but there we go. But it just takes slightly more force than I'd like it to. And then you just take these gray panels and just kind of fold them up underneath. And there you have the full Star Saber jet mode. And like I said, if you want, you can plug these onto the sides here. So at least there's a gun on each side. But in this mode, I generally prefer it to be clean just like that and leave the guns off to the side. But yeah, looks pretty nice. It has some landing gear underneath here that you can just fold in. Those will be his kneecaps in robot mode. And I think this is probably a good time to start showing off how the stand works. So if you take the full piece right here, for jet mode, you want to use this slot right here, and you want to use this longer, slot right here. So, or not slot, you know what I mean? The longer tab right there to slide it in just like that. And then that's what this piece is for. You want to take this little piece. And honestly, I kind of find it's easier to plug this on before you actually plug it into the stand, because you want to take this little piece right here, and it just goes into this tab on what will be his waist in robot mode. And it just plugs in like that. It's honestly, it's not the best connection. I mean, it fits just fine, but once it's got the full weight on the stand, it feels maybe a little bit more dubious than I'd like it to be, but it works relatively well. And then you just plug that onto the main arm here, so it sits like that. And yeah, I think that looks fairly good. It does tend to weigh him down a little bit. I guess you could, if you want, plug him in the other way, and that would work just fine. But then you'd have the arm facing forward as well. So really, whichever way you want it. It does angle it a little tiny bit. So if you want it like this, he's angled down ever so slightly. And if you have it the other way, he's angled up ever so slightly. But I still think that looks pretty cool. It's pretty nice, sturdy, flexible plastic. So that looks a little bit scary, but I don't think it's really at risk of breaking. All the connections feel pretty secure. So yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I don't tend to really use display stands when figures come with them, but it is a nice sort of added bonus, even if it is probably just going to go in the in a closet for me. But still pretty cool there. Honestly, I might just find some way of just mounting the actual stand bit itself like onto a wall somewhere or something, because that I think looks pretty nice in and of itself, just as a neat little display thing. But yeah, so pretty decent stand, all things considered. And then yeah, obviously we can have this little landing gear out. So now I guess I'll show off the full-on combined mode with Victory Leo. So I just got to transform him real quick. All right, here he is in his sort of default little jet thing mode. And again, I'll show off the transformation for that in his own video. But that's what they look like together. And I guess before I combine them, I do want to show him off with some with a few other figures as well. Here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime in his vehicle mode, and I guess we'll sneak on a side swipe here as well, just for that standard size comparison, just so you can see kind of how the scale works there. I think that looks pretty cool. I guess, well, we already saw them, but here they are. Here he is with Holly and Fire. And then for another jet mode comparison that a lot of people would probably have, here he is with the Earthrise Seeker mold with Starscream. And then one of the comparisons that I think this guy gets compared to a lot with, because of just like the size and the pricing of him, is here he is with Commander Class Jetfire from Siege, who is definitely a bit bigger than him. I mean, this guy definitely has a lot more like moving parts and things going on with him, so, and a whole other figure that he comes with as well. So you know, there's there's a comparison to be made, because this guy was like, what, at the time, like $80 as a commander class, and then this guy is nearly $200. And even in the combined sort of Victory Saber mode, he's still a little bit shorter than Jetfire. So there's some stuff there where I'm like, I'm not entirely convinced that should exactly be worth the price that he is, but whatever. Either way, to show him off with a big jet, that's what he looks like with a big jet. I think they look pretty cool together. And all right, to show him off with the actual combined thing. So first thing you want to do is just take off the shield for now. Now on Victory Leo, you want to separate this bit and just fold these little clip pieces into the inside, and then flip up his little lion head, and then take this back plate and then fold that up just like that. And then basically these two tabs right here are going to correspond to these two slots on the inside of the V-Star. And you want to take this blue panel, and it'll just unpeg and double hinge up for now. So you can get that in there. It can be kind of tricky sometimes. Usually I try to just like slide it in from the top here, and then, you know, push it down until it can actually tab in just like that. Kind of move these cannons out of the way just a little bit so that you can take this this blue panel and then hinge it back down. And there's these big two clips on the inside of the blue panel that will correspond to these clips on Victory Leo. So you want to tab it in like it was before, and then also clip it in just like that. And then we can take the shield, and it'll store in the exact same place, but you do want to take the handle, and you want to rotate it so the actual, so the actual handle bit is facing towards the back, and then peg it onto to this spot right here, just like that. And then that will fit in the same place, just like it did before, and peg on like that. And you can bring these back down. And then in this mode, to actually get everything fully tabbed in place, I do take the V-Lock cannon and put it on the side here. I do wish that it had, you know, a place to store that wasn't just like asymmetrical like that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it worked in the animation itself, so it doesn't bother me too much. And then if you want to have this stored and add some symmetry on the other side, you can do that. And there he is in his full-on combined mode. And yeah, it looks really cool. I mean, you know, like with a lot of the Japanese designs, it is big and stupid looking, like it is kind of just like a big slab of Cybertronian nothing, but it's still pretty cool looking, and I'm definitely into it. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the jet mode. I guess we can show them off again with Starscream, just for one comparison with the full-on jet mode. But I guess we'll just transition now to taking all this stuff off him and just looking at the individual Saber mode, and then we'll get on to the larger robot mode as well. This clip is really tight. It's really hard to unclip sometimes, which is annoying. Jeez. All right, come on. And it doesn't help, it's like, because everything is kind of between, you know, Star Saber's legs here, it's like, it's kind of hard to actually get a good grip on it. And that clip, like, really the tabs hold it in just fine enough. So I don't know that this this full-on clip is really that necessary, and it kind of just makes it a huge pain to unclip. It's not usually so bad, but when I'm like reaching over a camera like this, it definitely makes it harder. All right, let's just take off the head for now, just so I don't accidentally snap that or anything. All right, one sec. Let me just get this off. Okay, yeah, not usually that hard, but it is kind of hard to do while reaching over a camera. And we can just untab him right here and then put Victory Leo off to the side. We'll put the rest of the accessories off to the side as well, just so we can take an individual look at Saber. So yeah, like I said, even unclipping him from this spot is still pretty difficult, this is the one connection on the whole figure that I mean, even that clip is like, it's a pain, but it doesn't like really feel like you're at risk of breaking anything. Whereas this is like, okay, that wasn't that bad. It is harder to put in than take off, but that connection is a little bit irritating sometimes. So we'll just put that off to the side for now. And then, yeah, in terms of transforming him the rest of the way to his robot mode, obviously we just want to take out the little brain of courage here for now. And then you want to take the whole nose cone of the jet and just pull that off. Close this back up, fold the wings the rest of the way onto the back so they just sit like that. Then take the little tail fins, fold them up like this. So you have this little just chunk, and then rotate it around like that. Rotate the arms up just like that and leave them out there for now. And then you want to separate the legs. And then because you have to separate them first, because this panel on the inside of the legs actually folds out like that, which then unlocks the mechanism for his upper legs to kind of unfold like that, sort of Combiner War style, just sideways. And then you can close that back up to kind of lock that into place. And then you want to take this little shin flap here and rotate that up, and then take his little toes and flip them out like that, and just do the same thing on both sides here. Again, you know, pretty simple mechanisms. There's nothing too crazy going on about with Saber himself. Then we can unfold his hands here, and then just bring them down at the shoulder themselves, rather than, you know, this joint where they were like kind of more collapsed for the vehicle mode. And then we want to open up his little his chest piece here and fold out most of his robot head, because this obviously does the whole brain master gimmick, where you take the brain of courage, stand him up straight here, and then on his back he does have just kind of a big sort of half a face there. You want to fold that bit up, which kind of folds in his own little robot mode head because it's all attached to the same piece. And then you want to take this and kind of feed it in so that it the face sits properly in the helmet there, and then the little brain of courage guy tabs into that piece right there. And then you just close up this this chest piece, and there we have Saber in his robot mode. And yeah, you know, it doesn't do the whole like spring-loaded part of the brain master gimmick like it used to, but honestly I'm totally fine with that, because like those spring mechanisms, like if you leave them extended for too long, it does kind of mess with the spring and makes the figure like less functional overall. And then obviously you'd want it to be extended out like that, which just is constantly compressing the spring. So, you know, I'm happy they did it that way, and I think it still works. Now, you are supposed to take the little, you know, cockpit section here. Obviously, it's part of the jet mode, so he's got to still have it. If you wanted to, you could like fold it up, like unfold the wings a little bit and put it onto his back like that. It's just an option. What you're supposed to do with it is just peg it onto the side of his arm, which looks a little bit goofy, but is also accurate to to how he had it in the show. So, you know, I think that works relatively well. Now he's the one who's really what this gun is meant for, so you can have that. But again, like, because it doesn't really store in vehicle mode, and if you want to store it in robot mode, you have to just like unfold the wings a little bit. And if you peg it on this way, it kind of bumps into the ground. So you would have to like peg it in like this facing up, which I don't think looks good, or peg it onto one of his arms, which I guess at least means he's got something on both arms, but like I don't think that really looks that great either. So personally, I don't really like this gun, or at least the gun itself is fine. I don't really like how it's not integrated into a lot of the different modes, so I just put it off to the side. But If you want, you can take the sword and obviously extend it. Now, just to show off how the sword works, you just take the handle and pull it out like this, which frees up the space that you can plug the sword into. Now, they advertise that you're supposed to be able to like put the sword in either direction, because like the original, toy, they had it like this, and then he would hold it like this, but it would be like sideways, so that was kind of dumb. So they're now giving you the option to plug it in this way as well, except it really kind of doesn't fit this way super well. Like, you can get it in there, but it's not a very good connection. So what I generally do, like, it stays just fine. Well, not that just fine, but it stays okay if you're just having it in a static pose, but I don't know, I just don't really like that connection. So what I generally do is just leave it in this way, but then have him hold it like this instead, which again, I don't really usually do this for the smaller robot mode anyway. Also, the thing that's kind of annoying, I wish that this had like a more solid locking point to pull out the handle, because what you tend to do is that you put the sword in and then you try to put it in someone's hand, and it just compresses the actual handle and sometimes pushes this out, which is really annoying. But that time it wasn't too bad. But you can have him hold the full sword, but generally when I have him in this mode, this sword is usually hidden away inside of the V-Star, so I don't really use that functionality, but you can do it, and I think that looks all right. But yeah, in terms of articulation for this guy, the head, it does have articulation, which is nice. They found a way to do it. It swivels. Basically, it goes from about that far to that far. And basically what's happening here is the entire little chamber that the Brainmaster is in is rotating as well, which I think is pretty cool. So as a result of that, it only gets about that range, but yeah, that's still a pretty decent range, I think. Now the shoulders, they are on ball joints, so they can rotate around and fold out to the side. The ball joints themselves are pretty tight, and unfortunately they're much tighter than the joints that the arms are actually attached to. So when you try to bring his arm out to the side, it does tend to default to that joint, but you can bring it out just like that. So, you got some options there. It's a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. He's got a bicep swivel right here, maybe a degree over 90 at the elbow there. The wrists, the way that they fold into the arm is because they're on ball joints, so he does have a wrist swivel, which is nice. He's got a waist swivel, though it does bump into the backpack a little bit, so it only gets about that much range. The hips can swing forward and back and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got a little under 90 degrees of bend at the knee, but still fine. He's got a very tiny amount of ankle tilt, but he does. And then you can fold the toes in. You can't really fold them any more forward than they are. And then the one joint that I wasn't really expecting him to have, and it is kind of a transformation joint, but he also has an ab crunch, which is nice. That's cool. You don't see a lot of ab crunches on Transformers, and granted, it is part of his transformation, but still, I think it works pretty well. Hey, sorry, real quick. After recording, I realized I completely forgot to do the size comparisons with the individual Saber mode, so we'll just do that before moving on here. For a standard size comparison, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. Here, he really is kind of like an average size Deluxe, just a little bit smaller. You can see he's a little bit shorter than Sideswipe there at the head. And to further illustrate that, here he is with Kingdom Huffer. So you can see he's a little tiny bit taller than Huffer at the head. So he's sort of, more Huffer size, but kind of, part way in between Huffer and Sideswipe, just for that, that Deluxe size comparison. Here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime, just so you can see what they look like together. And then here he is with Victory, Leo, and then Holly and Fire, just so you can see him with the rest of the crew here. And, I think that's kind of a neat comparison. And then also, while we're at it, I also wanted to kind of show him off, like, you can have him sort of like ride the V-Star as well. You just sort of have to unplug the shield here, because, you could just have him stand on top there and balance, but there is actually a peg here that you could use to, like, plug into the bottom of his feet here. I suppose you could have him just hold the shield, which isn't a bad look, honestly. I think the shield is kind of more appropriately sized for him as just like a giant riot shield. I think that's kind of cool, but it's not a great connection with the bottom of the foot here. I don't even think they show this off in the instructions, but it's something that you could do to have him sort of like ride on the V-Star, because he did, in his robot mode, like ride it like a surfboard a few times in the show. So I think that's kind of a cool option. But yeah, anyway, on to the rest of the video. But yeah, so now I guess we'll bring on the the V-Star so we can show off how this works. Now there is a base mode that is kind of dumb, but I'll show it off just because it's part of the figure, but I never bring him to the base mode, honestly. But to start off his transformation, you do want to take the head of Star Saber here and just unclip it and put it off to the side. So it does do a little bit of parts forming, but also, you know, this whole thing is kind of parts forming, so whatever. And then you want to unpeg this panel again and just bring it up like this for now. We can fold in the little landing gear here, fold up the little wings just onto the side like that. Now, you want to untab this section right here, and then the best way to unclip this, because it's also clipped into this section of the leg here, I find is to kind of rotate it out like this way, because just trying to, and that's also the best way to like re-snap it in when you're going back to vehicle mode, just because I think it works much better that way. I've like sat here for a little while trying to just like push this into place and pull it out, and it feels just a lot easier to just give it that slight bit of rotation. And then here's what I'm talking about too, is this is where the blade of the sword stores in robot mode. It slides in there like that, so then when you want to go to vehicle mode, there's a little space on this side here to kind of, you know, give that enough wiggle room so it fits totally inside the jet mode. But it's definitely, it makes it a little bit inaccessible when you're actually in vehicle mode unless you want to start untransforming it. So yeah, that's how that works. We'll just do that on both sides here. Just crack it down the middle and bring it down like that. And then for the legs here, there's this panel on the inside of the leg. You just want to unfold like that. And then this whole thing will kind of double hinge out to the side like that. And then you just tab this panel back in. You want to just bring this out of the way just so we can bring this up and then snap the hip into place just like that. And then for the base mode, you want to leave these out to the side. And I guess really you want these rotated back this way so they're sitting forward like that. So you want to bring these out to the side and then take part of the little skirt flaps here and just fold them down like that. So we'll just rotate that up just like that. And then unfold that panel, double hinge it out, clip that into place, fold that back in and bring down this skirt flap. And then you kind of want to take this panel and just kind of fold it to the back like this just to give it some support. And that's mostly it. You want to take the head here, and there's these two little, like designated just for this mode, there's these two little clips that you can plug on the neck joint too. So, you know, just in case it didn't already look enough like a dude doing the splits lying down, now his head is up there as well. Now, you can, if you want, take the shield and put the handle back in place. And these two little pegs or tabs rather here, which are really meant for how it attaches to Saber in the full-on Star Saber mode. There are two little slots on the shield that those correspond to. It's kind of a pain to get it like lined up properly. And then even when you do, it's like, you know, you try to press it in and it just wants to compress those panels. And the connection itself is not very good. And also, you know, if you're imagining the head as a little turret here, it now sticks straight into the back end of a shield. So it's a thing. You could take the, you know, this cannon here and put it onto the side like that. You could take Saber and have him kind of stand at the back here to man it. I think this mode is kind of dumb, but you know, it doesn't really. The only thing that is actually designated for this mode are these two little clips that the head attaches to. So it's completely unobtrusive. It's completely ignorable if you want to just completely forget it exists, which I generally do. But that just for posterity's sake, that is what it looks like. So to continue on to the full Star Saber mode, obviously just take off the shield and the head again. It's, you know, not really a whole lot else from here. You just want to bring the hips down like that, and then bring the side skirts down the rest of the way. The feet, which can be kind of tricky to grab sometimes, but not too bad. You want to fold them up, and then on this side, it has kind of a hard time getting over this this gray piece, and it's starting to grind it down a little bit, which at least will make it easier, but it's, you know, not quite the tolerance there that I'd like. But you just want to snap it up like that and then fold out the little toe there and do that on both sides. On this side, it's not too bad, thankfully. Then for the arms, so let me just adjust the camera here. You just want to rotate them down like this and then kind of bring them out to the side. And then it's similar to how the legs work. You've got this panel, which you fold up and then double hinge the arm out like that and then close the panel back up. And then his hands are just kind of in here, which you fold up to the side, which can be kind of a pain to grab sometimes, but I don't know. It's very varying each time I do it. Sometimes it's a huge pain and sometimes it's not, but you just want to fold the hands out just like that and then do the same on both sides here. It's just, there's not really a great place to grab it. Like, oh, there we go. You can use that and just bring those into the right position there. And then this back panel, you want to bring this up onto the back and it'll just tab in like that to sit on the back. And then we can take Saber and mostly putting them back into most of the jet mode configuration. You just want to fold in the hands and leave them out there for like that for now. Fold back in the toes, fold back in these shin pieces right here. And then you want to recollapse the legs, but then when you bring them down after you collapse them and before you tab them back together, you want to fold it up at this joint so it sits like that, because you really can't do that once the legs are tabbed together. Then close that panel back up. Just like that. Then you can tab the legs together, and now you're really activating that that ab crunch. So you can bring it up just like this, and then these two tabs on these shin pieces will go kind of just sit into these grooves right here on the chest. It's not a very tight connection, but this isn't really the main thing that holds that together in the combined mode anyway. And then we can take these little chest pieces and fold them out like that, and then take the arms and just put them kind of back into their vehicle mode configuration where they're just face down like that. Then you can take the whole section here, open up these gray panels, and it'll kind of just slot in here. It's got a few different spots where like it's got this mechanism which has a button on the back that kind of springs it to release it. To be honest, I'm not really entirely sure what all the parts that are that are sinking this guy into there are, but it feels pretty solid. And then the main thing that really holds this into place is then you take these gray panels and there are these slots on the legs that you just want to line those up and kind of click each one into place, and that makes it very solid. And then if you want, you could do this, because he did this several times in the cartoon where he'd have his regular Saber head open and available, but like in the full-on Star Saber armor mode. Now in the cartoon, he kind of did this like impossible thing where when he wasn't wearing his helmet, his head was still the same size, even though in the transformation like animation, it still shows this tiny head. So it doesn't really work for that, but I don't really blame it, since the animation just kind of did this impossible magic trick of having the head change sizes. So I'm not really going to display him like this anyway, even if the head were the right size, because I prefer the Star Saber head. But then you want to take the little helmet here, you can rotate up his little antenna here and fold them out to the side, and then take the face and just fold that down like this, and then this will just slot over his earlier robot mode head. And there we have Star Saber in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks pretty good. He's a little bit like wider in some sections than I would prefer, but really that looks much worse sort of like in the in images than it does in person. In person, I think he looks really, really nice. Obviously, you can bring back on his accessories here. You can have him hold this gun, though, again, I generally don't prefer him with this gun. But if you want him to have a gun that isn't the V-Lock cannon, he does have that. And then, obviously, we can have him hold the sword. Like I said, this connection doesn't work super solidly. So I tend to just, rotate it sideways. And I also tend to put this piece in first so that I can, pull that back out and have it sit just like that, and then attach the blade and kind of just rotate his hands. And then the shield, there's a few options. This rotating piece does have a handle, so you can actually have him, hold the shield. The best way to do it is kind of have it, with his hand rotated sideways so it sits in the middle of his arm. And then you can kind of bend it down if you want, or do it the other way, so you can bend it up a little bit. Either way, it's you got a few options here, but that looks fairly good, I think. But what you can also do with the shield is it's got this whole clip section which you can clip onto the side of his arm here, which is how I tend to display it. I think that I just like the look of that a little bit better. So you can kind of use it as an arm shield, because it's kind of not big enough to be like a full on like him holding it in his hand shield. I think it works a little bit better just on the side of his arm. And then in terms of storage, storage, he does have a few peg holes on the back here, so there's some options in terms of storing the sword. Like if you want to store the sword in its full sword, you can do it like that, and that would work. You could also put the other gun back here, but then there's not really a place for the shield. But like I showed off earlier, you can take the blade of the sword and actually, instead of slotting back here like it did on the original figure, it just slots into this little bit on his leg, which is, it's a pretty loose connection, but you know, unless you're like really flipping him upside down, it has nowhere to go. And it's probably better that it's a loose connection, since this whole thing is painted silver, just so it's not scratching any of the paint. But yeah, that works just like that. And then if you want, you can actually take the little, you know, hilt here of the sword, and it can plug onto the shield, just like that. So you could have, you know, that just on his arm like that. What I tend to do is I leave that pegged on just like that, but then I take the actual handle and rotate it around. And then this is not really, I don't think, an intentional bit of storage, but he's got this clip back here for where Victory Leo attaches, and this does not correspond to that clip, but it can kind of just like loosely hang over it. And again, you know, this is a pretty loose connection, but it's not going to like fall off from gravity or anything like that, because this way it's fairly firm. So you could do it like that. Then, you know, this gun doesn't really still fit in the back here. It kind of does, but you could just like, I don't know, put it on the back of his shoulder or something like that. Like I said, I tend to just leave this gun in the box because I don't really like how it integrates, but I just leave him with those weapons because I think that's enough. But, you know, there's a few options for where you could put it. But yeah, so, you know, fairly decent stuff there. Now, in terms of articulation, one thing I want to talk about first is if you look at him, he kind of leans back a little bit, which bugs me. And that really irritated me because it was like I was looking at the hips and it's like either back like this, or if you click it one forward, it kind of leans down a little bit. And I was really bummed out by that until I realized that one joint that he actually does have is a slight ab crunch. So if you just unlock the waist here, it gets only 2 clicks, so it doesn't really do a whole lot. But if you bring it just like 1 click forward, that helps a lot with having him just like stand straight up and looking forward, not looking down, not looking up. And I think that works pretty well. So it's nice that he has that joint. Other than that, the head, since it's just attached to the smaller saber head, it does have pretty much the same range of rotation as it did before, just like that. Not a ton, but, you know, enough. And because of how it transforms, it can also look up a little bit, though you will start to see like the top of Saber's head there, but still, that's nice. And then obviously you can adjust these, excuse me, however you want. And then the shoulders here, they rotate around on a ratchet joint just like that. Also, I don't know if I pointed this out before, but these do hinge up and down, which I mostly just leave them up, so whatever. But now, unfortunately, in terms of outward movement, he only gets about that much just because these blocks don't actually rotate out at all, which is fine. It's, you know, not as good as I would like it to be, but yeah, it's whatever. Now, the elbows, he has double jointed elbows. Oh, he also has a bicep swivel, but he's got this clicky joint right here, which is kind of where I would expect the elbow joint to be. And then he also has a separate joint up here. Now, unfortunately, since the lower one, which is the one I would want to use more often, is a clicky joint and the top one isn't, it defaults to the upper one, which, you know, it looks fine, but I think it looks a little bit better. If you just want his, like, you know, if you just want his arms like casually bent, I don't think this looks as good as this does. So it's a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. But with both of those, you can, you know, maneuver those joints a little bit to get a little bit over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. But obviously with his big sort of chunky forearms, you're not getting a whole lot, but, you know, decent. The wrists can rotate, and then obviously for transformation, they can bend in like that a little bit or bend out just slightly a bit more. I kind of wish they had some joint to bend down just for like, you know, sword poses, but whatever. And then he does do the same thing as Siege Jetfire here, where he's got the hands that have the peg hole when they're closed in a fist, and then you open out the fingers, and then the peg hole sinks into the hand, which is still a really neat mechanism, though. I don't think his hands look nearly as good as Jetfire's when they're open, so I tend to leave them closed. And if I'm going to leave them closed all the time, I'd sort of prefer they were just solid fists. So, you know, I don't think it's quite as successful as it was on Jetfire, but it's still a neat idea. Now he does have a waist joint as well. Oh, the other joint, this is a joint I honestly forget about a lot of the time because you don't really need it for any of the transformation or anything like that. So it's very easy to kind of miss, but he does actually have a bit of a butterfly joint that clicks out to the side, which kind of creates this ugly gap, but still it's nice that he does have that option. And then it kind of clicks in place. So, it's easy to kind of miss that joint is even there because of just like how all the pieces are attached together. So that's neat that he does have that. But yeah, he's got a regular waist joint. The hips, obviously you've got these little side skirts and front skirts that can move out like that. The front skirts are on these little clips that are, they're pretty easy to unclip from it, but it's not too big of an issue. But his hips can click forward like that, back only about that far because there's no butt skirts. And then just rotate this out pretty much all the way out to the side as you saw for that base mode. He does have a thigh swivel right there. He's got a clicky knee joint that gets a little bit under 90, which is a little bit disappointing, but still that's fine, I guess, with how chunky his lower legs are. It has kind of a different sound going one way versus the other, which is a little bit strange, but whatever. And then the feet, basically this whole section here is on a ankle tilt. So he does get a little bit of ankle tilt, which is nice. And then for the toes, you can bring them up a bit more. So you can get some like forward facing toe joint movements, which is nice. And then the little toes can fold down, and then these toes can fold down. So it's easier on this side, yeah. So you can do some stuff with that, but obviously since the heel doesn't move, it's not all that useful. But can be nice for some stuff. So yeah, pretty okay articulation considering all the things that he does. I sort of understand why his articulation is a little bit limited, but since this is like such an expensive product, I was kind of hoping for some more like extra bells and whistles in terms of the articulation. Like the ab crunch was the one thing that surprised me, and that is really nice. But if we just like added, some sort of double joint in the knee or some sort of method for his wrists kind of rotating down, I think that would have been really nice. But what can you do? But yeah, pretty nice in this mode here. Now, in terms of size comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Earthrise Optimus Prime and Kingdom Sideswipe, and then we'll throw in a Earthrise Starscream there. Why not? Just so you can see what he looks like with some standard size figures, some molds that a lot of people probably have. And then here he is again with Siege Jetfire, who in this mode is quite a bit taller than he is, as you can see. And yeah, I think I would have generally preferred that, like, if you're really wanting to get accurate with how the scale was in Transformers Victory, he really, in his regular Star Saber mode, should be about at least Jetfire height in just this regular mode, because he was basically stacked up with a bunch of combiners, and he's pretty much like Combiner Wars combiner height. So that would have been nice. He's like maybe a little bit shorter than Jetfire in his full-on combined mode, which again we'll show off next time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the size that he is. I feel like it feels a little bit more, I don't know. I'm fine with him being this size for my kind of headcanon, but to really be more accurate for scale in terms of, like the actual animation, he really would have to be a lot bigger. So, that it is what it is, but that's what they look like together. And then last but not least, here he is again with Victory Leo, and then Holly and Fire, who I'm not even sure if they're making it onto frame, but just so you can see what the full set looks like together, obviously without a lot of the other little extra bits. But yeah, I think they look pretty good together. You can bring back on the display stand, and basically instead of this T-bar and this slot, you just want to use it like this, so you can get it on the stand like that. And then this peg right here will actually go onto the this port right here on his back, and then this piece he kind of like rests on it. Now the height of this is really much more for the full-on combined Victory Saber mode, but if you want to do it like that and get him in like a flying position or something like that, it is still an option, and you don't really need this piece or anything in this stand configuration. But if just you want a place to put it, you can just leave it back there. It doesn't get in the way of anything, although Okay, fine. It's not coming off right now, but so you can still use the stand, but I'll show that off again in the next video. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about just Star Saber himself. Oh, one other thing I do want to mention is on mine there was a little bit of a paint blemish on the front here, where some of the like the kind of like chromed out gold here had a little bit of spillover. And I was thinking like, oh, that's a bummer. It wasn't like a huge deal or anything, but it was, you know, kind of ugly. But I was able to just take my fingernail and just like scratch it off a little bit, which is great. But then I got a little bit concerned that like, if I just took my fingernail and tried to scratch off this section, like where it's supposed to be, would that work? I haven't tried it because I don't want to confirm that it would work, but if it were that easy to scratch it off, that would be a little bit concerning. Maybe there's like some extra bit of like adhesion on here, and which there obviously wouldn't have been on the main chest. So because like, for example, I think, yeah, here, look, there's like a tiny little paint blemish right here of the blue paint, right? Which is not a big deal. I'm not complaining about it really. I mean, I'd prefer it not be there, but whatever. But like, you know, when you've got little paint blemishes like that, you can't really just like scrape them off with your fingernail. You have to like use some sort of like, you know, like paint remover or something, or like rubbing alcohol to actually get stuff like that off, which is, you know, not that big a deal. But I was kind of surprised that I was able to get the chrome gold off just with my fingernail, which makes me a little bit worried about like how how tough the gold chrome is on these guys. Like I'm sure companies will do sticker sets if it becomes too much of an issue, but I don't know. I was a little worried about that. Just thought I'd mention it. But yeah, overall, I'd say that he looks pretty good. He's probably, I mean, he's the main part of the set, but he probably is my favorite part of the set. The main reason why I wanted to get it, just because I really do like Star Saber's design. But yeah, we'll be back next time to show off the full combined mode and look a little bit more deep into Victory Leo. But for now, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Without further ado, here we have Transformers Legacy HasLab Star Saber.